Hey, everybody. Rob Kosberg here with Bestseller Publishing. Welcome to a new year. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021. And this BSPU call is maybe in some ways perhaps a little bit late, but I realized I spoke to you guys about several marketing efforts that we were doing to start the new year and different things. And I didn't actually share with you any of our kind of BSPU, things that I've learned regarding goal setting. And so forgive me, I probably should have done this before, but it is something that you can maybe add to the goal setting that you've already done if you have. And if you haven't, then I think you're really going to like what I'm going to share with you today, because it is very simple, but I have found it to be very effective as well. So today we're going to be discussing my goal setting techniques, things that I've learned from a lot of people smarter than me. One in particular, Mark Ford, who's one of the founders of Agora Financial, which is $1 billion company. Very, very smart guy. And I love the way he does things. And I love the way he was able to transform many parts of his life through just good, solid goal setting. So a lot of this is my interpretation of things I've read and things I've studied and things that I do every single year. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. And because I have just a bunch of notes, and I thought it would just be simple to throw my notes right up on the screen for you, and then kind of go through each of these things individually with you as well. So let me move this over. Here we go. I don't know why this is not liking it. Hold on. All right. My computer is freaking out. There you go. Can everybody see my screen? Let me know that you can see my screen okay now, because it blinked like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, oh my gosh, did I lose everybody or not? So let me open up the chat at the same time and make sure that I can see all of that. Okay. All right, looks good. So, okay, so it was black initially, and now everyone can see it. Great. So I'm going to go through kind of step by step what I do. I'm going to share some things personally with you. Of course, I'll answer any questions that you have that you're wondering about interpretation for yourself, etc. And obviously, you take what you hear and you're going to embrace it or not, and you're going to figure out how these things will best work with you and with your goals. So let me go through kind of the main pieces of it. Then I'm going to give you some examples, and then talk a little bit about some productivity and productivity habits that I think could be very, very helpful for you as well. So number one, the most important thing that you can do if you've not done it already, and honestly, it's something that is a good thing to do at least every 6 months. And I'd probably say quarterly. I do this quarterly myself. And that's number one, to make time and actually schedule at least 1 to 2 hours minimum on, reflecting on what it is that you want, how it is that your these 4 different areas that I'm going to go into more depth on. If we're talking about, doing this only once a year, then it's very simple. We're going to want to do this at least once a year to reflect upon the previous 12 months and then reflect upon what do we want in the future 12 months. So number 2, that kind of leads into it, is you want to take some time, additional time perhaps, or maybe you can do it all within a couple of hours, but you want to review your goals from last year. So I have a notebook. I have a bunch of different notebooks, as you guys know, and I have my goals from last year, 2019, right here in my notebook. I write them all down the exact same way. I got like 2 pages of stuff that I've written down. This was from just my 2019 and 2020. And I do the exact same thing now going forward in 2021. So I just go back to the page and I mark it. I'll go back to the page and I'll review, okay, these were the goals that I had. And this is something obviously I do on a regular basis, but maybe I haven't done this for 3 or 4 months. These were the goals I had. Let's reflect on it. from the last year or the last quarter or whatever the length of your goal setting time is. And then I write down for the future, I write down what I accomplished in that period of time of the goals that I set, and I write down what I missed. So, what I like to do, I have 4 areas, and I'll go through that in just a second. But in these 4 areas, I don't want to have more than 4 or 5 goals in each of these areas because I feel like even that is a lot, right? And we're not necessarily talking about 20 life goals. We're talking about goals for the year. These are projects. These are pledges you're making to yourself. For me, that's what it is. And so I don't want to have any more than 4 or 5. So I'm going to have, and in this case for 2021, I have, what do I have exactly? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 9. I have 13 that are within these 4 categories. And then what I'm going to do on a regular basis, I'll look and I'll review. But at the end of the year, I'm going to write down of those 13 things, what did I accomplish in the year? I'm going to make some notes about it. I'm going to write down what I didn't accomplish about it and why I didn't. You know, some things that you don't accomplish in a year aren't necessarily that you failed at accomplishing it. It may be that you made significant progress, and that's great. It may be that your entire focus changed, and that thing is no longer a pledge or no longer a goal or no longer important to you. That's totally fine. But it's at least good to go back, hold yourself accountable, and take a look at what goals you accomplished and what goals that you missed. What I also write down for myself is I'll write down if there's anything else that I accomplished that maybe I didn't have as a specific goal that I can feel really good about. So I do a whole review of my goal setting period. And since we're at the beginning of 2021, let's say that that's for a year. Number 3 is, and this is a lot harder than it sounds, is to take some time and reflect and contemplate about what it is that you really want. And I mean that in a couple of different areas. One, or A, I have listed life goals. Life goals are not 2021 New Year's resolutions, right? They're not a pledge this year. They're much bigger than that. They might be, learning a second or a third language and becoming conversational in it. I have some that, like in health, mental and physical, have to do with writing, obviously, right, bestseller publishing, but, writing books for my children that I believe will hopefully reflect upon my life, and not so much an autobiography, but, lessons I've learned and things that I want to pass on to future generations. That's not something that's a pledge in 2021 as much as it is a life goal of me passing on my stories, my wisdom, the mistakes that I've made, etc. It might be, doing something like creating your own 501c3 nonprofit, or maybe being a major contributor to a nonprofit, etc. And so these, like, real contemplative life goals take some time, because they're much deeper than how much money you want to make in 2021, or what car you want to drive, or where you want to live, and things of that nature. They're things that you will take perhaps years of individual yearly pledges and maybe even 5-year goals before you accomplish them. I've debated on and off. I've always been intrigued by martial arts. I took judo for a period of time in college, and I've always thought, I'd love to become proficient, even a black belt in a martial art. I'm not ready to commit to that. So, like, it's not a life goal. It's just something I'm toying with in my mind. In other words, like, you really have to reflect and contemplate, is this something that is a life goal? I really want this. From there, 5-year goals, and of course, the 1-year goals or pledges, as in the new year. I do this in 4 areas. I've heard this done many different ways. Like, there are is it the 5 or 6 F's, friends, finances, family, fun, like leisure, things like that. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. I think of it these 4 ways: health, because what is money or success or even great relationships if you can't enjoy them and need good health to enjoy them? So health is both mental and physical. That's what you're learning, how you're growing, and how you're taking care of the body that you reside in. For me, wealth, which is 2 different things. It's both income, which early in my life, it was only income that I was interested in. But as you get older, it's like, oh, yeah, I need to save some of that money. I need to invest. I need to, I'm not always going to be doing this. And so it's both your income and your investments. Both of those things are important. I have goals in both of those areas. I think you should too. C is a personal. And personal is hobbies and interests. And I'm going to, I'll give you some different examples, but, I'm a golfer. So I'm always trying to get better at golf because I desire so strongly to beat my friends and to not humiliate myself whilst I'm playing with them. And golf is a humiliating and humbling and discouraging game at times. So hard. So, I'm always wanting to get better at golf, but it's a hobby, right? It's not so much about my health. It's more a hobby. It's more an interest, things like that. And then I wrote, a lot of people just think social. I think social and spiritual. And so that is goals for your friendships, your family, and goals for a deeper level of connection, whatever that means to you, your creator, your relationship with God, your relationship with another level of depth. These are the things that, like, the essence of life is made from. And so without taking time to think about these things and having goals for your relationships, your family, spiritual, etc., you're missing out. So one of the things that I do every year is I actually do this with my wife. So, I take my time to contemplate these things for myself, and I have for a long time. And my wife does as well for herself. Obviously, she has an entire life that she lives that is, part of mine, but separate, right? She has her own goals and ambitions and desires and drives. And so we want to make sure that we are a great support for one another. I haven't always been. I've been married for over 30 years. So, to me, that is an incredible, looking at a lot of friends and family and others, it's an incredibly important part of my life that I support my wife, that I'm there for my wife in all the areas that she desires, right? I don't want her life tied up in making my dreams come true. I want her life to be about making her own dreams come true. So we do this together. We have a time where we usually go out to dinner and we pull out our notebooks and we just discuss things and we celebrate our victories and successes. And we, laugh at, our COVID-19 that we gained in 2021, and we try to do better or 2020 and try to do better in 2021. So I do it in all those 4 areas. I make my notes, I contemplate, I think, and I really try to be deep, but remember they're 1-year goals. They're not life goals in that sense. So, because that's what I'm talking about right now. I'm just talking about the time frame of, for me, 2021. So an example of these, because there's a couple of different ways to think about it. An example is these are some of my health goals for 2021. I want to get and stay in the 160s. That's a really healthy weight for me. I'm 5'8". I'm not very tall, so I don't have a huge frame. That's like a good weight for me. Now, last year it was stay in the 160s, but I didn't do that. Okay. So now it's get in and stay in the 160s. Also, I love to exercise, and so work out 5 or more times a week. That has actually become, in the last 5 years, like part of who I am. I work out every single day except for days that I play golf, and that means at least 5 times a week, and many times 6 times a week, and I don't miss. It's just like brushing my teeth in the morning. I love it. It's meaningful to me. It makes my body work and function well at 56. And then number three, I want to read and I want to write daily. Now, these are broad things, by the way, okay? And so with broad things, you have to take the broad, the bigger goals and break them into parts. So using the first, albeit shallow, but important to me, I like to fit in my jeans. I want to get in and stay in the 160s. What do I need to do that? Well, initially, I've got to cut sugar to only 1 time per week. Now I'm cutting it back from 21 times a week. In other words, I had sugar at every meal, right? Like I ate dessert after lunch. I ate dessert after dinner. I just went for it, especially in the last 6 months. So I need to cut it. For me, I want to cut it back to 1 time per week. Number two, alcohol to 2 times per week. So I'm not a teetotaler. I like to drink. I like to have scotch and cigars with my buddies. And honestly, I have, yes, James, old fashions have sugar. I love old fashions. I am extremely proficient at making old fashions. I am always the bartender with my friends. And I have become good at it because I do it way too much. So I'm like, I don't get drunk. I drink 1 drink or 2 drinks, but you drink 1 or 2 drinks 5 days a week, and holy cow, man, that's a lot of sugar. That's not good for my body. And so I have to, I've decided I'm going to keep my alcohol to no more than 2 times per week. And in fact, I'm taking 30 days. The first 30 days of January, I'm cutting out sugar and alcohol completely. So I'm doing like a full detox in January. But that's not long term. That's not the lifestyle that I want to live. And then number 3, and this is important, I need to speak to my friends and family about this. And do you know why? Because they're the ones that I eat and drink with. And you might think at 56, you don't have peer pressure anymore, but you don't know my friends. Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't have a drink with them. They're like, what? You're not having a drink? What's wrong? And I'm like, oh my gosh, man, I'm 56 years old. Let me make a decision for myself here, right? So I told them, and I said, look, guys, just so you know, I'm taking some time off from drinking. I'm only going to have maybe, first of all, I'm not going to have any old fashions for a little while because of the extra sugar. By the way, I know alcohol is sugar. I know, how the body metabolism works in that regard, but, I'm going to cut it back to just 1 or 2 times a week after my 30 days. Right. So, I know in some ways this stuff is superficial, but if you have a goal that's important to you, you want to write that goal down, but you want to take some time to think about how you really accomplish it. The most important thing on this list of the how I get and stay in the 160s was number 3. Like for me to make a decision, I'm cutting back on this, I'm changing this eating habit. I can do that. But man, I texted my wife and I, of course, talked about all this and our goals are similar, but I texted all of my buddies and they got on me and I'm like, guys, and then they all started like, you're right. And we put on weight too during COVID and we're going to cut back. Like now all of a sudden everybody's on the cutback train. I'm like, great. That's the train that I need to be on for a little bit of time. So speaking to my friends and family, when I thought through, okay, how, what are the obstacles to my success here? And my obstacles are the people that I love the most. I hate to say it, but they're the ones that I want to party with and have a good time with. And so I'm like, guys, I just need to, just stay with me. Okay. This isn't forever. I just need a little bit of time off the sugar, the cakes and the old fashions. And that was the most important part of it. I think the rest of it, obviously there'll be some challenges, but I think relatively speaking, that was the big piece. Okay. So again, you take your bigger goal, whatever it is. And I have like 13 of them that I shared and I shared some like reading and writing daily. That's a big one. There's a lot to think through in reading and writing daily, right? Like when, Rob, are you going to read and write daily? What are you going to read? What are you going to be writing daily? So these are things that if you take a little bit more time and you break your goals into parts, then they will become, much more manageable, and you'll find the sticking points of your goals so that you can get to success. Okay. Next is I wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk about longer term and life goals, even though what I've primarily just shared about, these health, wealth, personal, social, et cetera. What I primarily shared about are accomplishing those in the New Year's resolution type fashion. Like, what is it that you want to do today? But here's what I think you'll find is true for yourself. I find it true for me, and for almost everybody I know. 80% of the people that I know, more than that, 90 plus, and I'm talking about smart, hardworking people, tend to allow their schedules to be dictated by like the emergencies, by the stuff that's urgent, not the stuff that is most important to them. I find this true for myself. I find it true for my friends. And honestly, I think if you think about maybe the life goals that you want to accomplish and why you haven't made more progress, you might find that it's because often you're not making any progress because you're in the emergency instead of focused on doing a little bit towards the things that are important. I see this every day with clients writing their books. They write big checks to bestseller publishing. You know that. And then sometimes they disappear. And I'm like, where did you go? I mean, we call them, we email them, we follow up. Life gets in the way. I understand that. And sometimes it's something that you have no way of working around, right? It could be a health challenge or something serious. But in most cases, that's not what it is. In most cases, it's just the urgent took the place of the important. And so what do we need to do to make sure that that doesn't happen? So I give you 4 things. When you take some time, the first thing you can do is identify like what's most important to you when it comes to your life goals. For those of you that are writing your book for the first time, or you're writing your first book, that's a major life accomplishment, because the vast majority of the world has never written a book. They will never write a book. The unfortunate truth is the average American will read like one book in their lifetime after high school and education. That people don't read, let alone write. So you're trying to do something that is a life goal. You've identified that. Kudos to you. Congratulations. And you've made a commitment to that. But you have other important life goals. And I would say take some time and think about your health, your wealth, your personal, your spiritual, your social. And think about what are the things that you do want to accomplish in the next 20 years. If, God willing, we have 20 years, right? Who knows how long we have, but what are your life goals? You must take some time to identify what those are. Number 2, identifying them is not enough. You need to break them down into 5-year, depending on the scope of this life goal, and then 1-year pledges. So, if I'm to use the example I brought up in personal goals of learning a martial art, if I decided that I wanted to learn jujitsu, and one of our BSP clients is a very famous and world champion Brazilian jiu-jitsu, has his own amazing business and just has accomplished things that are mind-blowing, has been on Joe Rogan's podcast, which is the biggest podcast in the world. And so, I thought, gosh, I could really get some great advice from him about maybe taking this up. But if I wanted to be a black belt, this is like a lifetime commitment. It might take me 10 or 12 or 15 years to do that. And so I would need to break that down into 5-year and then 1-year pledges that I'm making for myself. And I need to take some time. If that's going to be a life goal, I need to take some time and really think through what would that look like. Then number 3, of course, that's not enough. You need to take time and determine what actions need to take place weekly and even daily to accomplish those things. Now, it doesn't need to be big. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about something that is an important life goal. Um, you and I have good days and we have bad days. And the good days are generally filled with things that we feel like helped us make progress. I mean, God forbid our good days are just because we didn't have any emergencies today, right? I mean, that can't be what makes for a good day. What makes for a good day is we make progress towards the things that are important to us. We make progress in our relationships. We make progress. We make progress in our business or in our health or in our spiritual well-being. That is a good day for us. A bad day is when we don't make progress and or we're finding ourselves going backwards. So, a good day might be as simple as, me making a phone call to my client and asking him some advice on, what should be my first steps in learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? And Scott says, no, it's not Jocko. Jocko's not our client. Um, but he's obviously super famous, and yeah, that he'd be a cool client, no doubt about it. So it might be as simple as just making a telephone call and having a conversation with him about that. When I was in 2017, really desirous of like learning about cryptocurrency and becoming, um, verse in the language and understanding it in my 50s, when most people that were involved in crypto were in their 20s and 30s because of the technology and kind of the barrier to entry. The first thing I did was I talked to one of our clients, Chris Dunn, who's like an OG in the Bitcoin crypto space. And I made great progress. And now 4 years later, I mean, it's amazing how much, as evidenced by some of the things I shared last week, it's amazing how much progress has been made in that space and with me personally in being versed and knowledgeable about crypto. But a good day was just getting started. It was a daily action that moved me forward. And then last but not least, and maybe this should be first, but I put it last because it's the last thing that I wanted to say. And that is, you have to make a commitment to do first things first. And that's the important things, and I didn't finish writing, but not the urgent things. So you have to decide what that means for you. But for me, what I find is that, like, if I take that literally, meaning that, like, first thing in the morning, if I focus my time and energy on something, even if it's just making small progress, then I move towards my goals. If I let the distractions of email and text messaging and social media and all the busyness of my day and my life, if I let those things get in the way, then I make no progress, because those urgent things like take the place of me making progress in the small, in the important. I've shared with you in the past about my morning routine. My morning routine is sacred. I mean, my wife knows, man. I'm up 5:30. I go on my prayer and meditation walks because I have a dog that has a voracious appetite for walks, which is good for me. It means I get a lot of time to pray and to meditate. And I do my reading and I do my writing at that time. And then when I'm done with that, I immediately work out. That's my workout time. And I have stuck with it consistently because of putting first things first, doing the important things first and not letting them wait for later in the day. So you have to decide what that is and what that looks like for you. Okay. So anyway, those are my thoughts on goal setting. This is what I do every year. As I said, I do it in these 4 areas. I spend time thinking about the year quite a bit and throughout the year. And then, of course, the last thing I talked about, the long-term and life goals. Really, that's what life is about, right? It's, when I got married, my long-term life goal was to have a marriage that was successful, and seemed to me that a successful one meant staying together. And so I needed to figure that out. And I don't know that I have, but I've certainly figured the first 30 years of it out. And so I mean, there's a richness in thinking long term, and where you want to go, and organizing your life around those important things. So